Hello again, YouTube. It's time to make a P90 pickup for a friend of mine named Mike. What I'm holding right now is the flat work and a maple spacer that's been dyed black. I glued all those parts together a couple of months ago. Set this project to the side for a little while, and I ran into Mike recently and we were talking about this, so it's time to get it back going for him. The piece that just fell down there is the keeper bar. You see some Alnico 3 magnets here. The job of that keeper bar is to hold those magnets. They're going to kind of butt up against it once we're fully assembled here. You can see that the pole pieces are going to fit pretty well in the case. And I've made sure that all these parts are the correct measurement part for the pickup that we're going to be making today. So the keeper bar, the flat work, the cover, all that needs to be for the correct size case. I think it was a 49.2 millimeter in this case. Traditionally, you would use this shielded wire that has a shielded that you ground, and then the signal wire goes inside. This would be how vintage P90 is made, and this would be traditionally what is used, this shielded wire. But talking with Mike, his plan is to put this in a Telecaster, and he's very fond of the series options that you get with the 4-way wiring in a Tele. So I'm going to need to run an independent ground that isn't linked to either the start or the end wire of the coil. So he'll be able to access that coil separately and then ground this pickup separately as well. You can see inside here we have 4 options plus a ground, so we are still going to get a shield, and that should help with some of the noise out of a P90. I have selected 42 gauge Remington plain enamel wire. I order this stuff directly from Remington. I find this the cheapest option. If you're going to use enough of it, this is definitely the way to go, ordering direct from them. This stuff is super skinny. It's really hard to get the camera to pick it up. Very fragile. It's really quite a miracle. All the noise you hear coming out of the radio from an electric guitar goes through tiny wires that are like thinner than a human hair. And that's pretty wild to me. Here is the machine that I'm going to be winding this pickup on. It's a 3-position switch. You can go in the middle for off, down for counterclockwise, and up for clockwise. The top number is the number of winds. The bottom number is the RPMs. Both of those work off little Hall effect sensors. There's a magnet on the back of the bar that those sensors read. And then there's speed control with that knob on the left-hand side. I really do not recommend that you build your own pickup winder. This was a fun project for me. I don't know if everyone would enjoy that, but there's a guy who sells winders that are made basically out of the exact same parts that I used, and you can get the completed winder for like $200 on eBay. So our path of the wire here will come up from the ground, and it will first go through that clothespin, which has 2 felt strap button pads on it. It'll then go through the spacer so that I keep the wire inside the coil, and then it'll wind up on the coil. It might be confusing because I said ground earlier, but I meant the floor. I'm just going to sit the pickup wire directly there on the floor and let it come up into the winder. Don't have my wax hot yet, so I'm going to sit it over on a hot plate. And you don't want to get this stuff over about 140 to 150 degrees at the most. You don't really want to get those magnets hot. Any hotter than that, about 140, 150 is the max. I already know on my burner in this pot, I already know where to put that to get the 150 degrees. And there's me reminding myself what to tell you guys. Yeah, the coil wire is just going to sit on the floor in that direction. The wire is going to come up off of it. And it comes off really smooth that way. That wire is definitely too thin to ever unwind that, so that it is how you have to do it. Those felt pads, it really works wonders for directing the path of that wire. And then you can see there it's just going to go up and through. And I think I'm just setting this all up. I basically send that stuff on the path that it's going to go. Then here I'm going to tie it to the pickup. Oh wait, yeah, just kidding, I forgot a very important step. Take some 320 grit sandpaper, and what I want to do is basically get anything that wire might possibly ever get hung on, and I want to smooth that edge over. If it does ride one of those edges, that's fine, but if it rides and catches any kind of little small bump, it's going to snap. And there's no worse feeling than it doing that once you've already put 3,000 or 4,000 winds on the pickup, and you know how much money you've wasted in that copper, and you have to restart, get all the stuff off, clean it back off, restart from scratch. So yeah, the most you can do to prevent restarting this and have it be a successful wind, if you can do it, you better do it. Now I can attach this to the pickup. What I like to do is send it 3 wraps through the eyelet. And I'm kind of looking just in the direction I'm going to wind the pickup. Now, if I was winding a set, I would have a plan here, which direction to wind and all that. But at the moment, I'm not sure what pickup Mike is going to be using this with. So I'm just going to have to kind of throw a guess at it. And I'm going to sort of do it as if it was a standard pickup. It'll work in either case. It just may or may not be hum canceling, and if it sounds out of phase, he might have to reverse the wires, or even in worst case scenario, reverse the magnets on the pickup. Either way, all that can be done. You know, if I was doing a set, like I say, I would have a plan about which way to do this and which way to wind and which way the magnets go. But in this case, I'm just going to make a pickup, and we'll see what happens whenever we wire it into his guitar. Either way, this thing will come out to be a working pickup. It's just a matter of how it interacts with the bridge pickup he's going to be using. This stuff is essentially double sticky foam. It's like sticky on both sides. If anyone's in the printing business, this would be equivalent to sticky back. I actually use this to put tiles in my kitchen backsplash, and this is what I had left over. And it is by far the most successful thing that I have ever used to mount pickups to my winder. See, a piece will just go on the back there. I'll center it up as best I can, eyeballing it. Is it perfect? No, it's not the perfect solution. Is my winder even perfect? No, it's not the perfect solution. But all this stuff works. It makes great sounding pickups, and it's the way I do it. I had a little stray piece of the pickup wire that was from after it was sort of tied around the eyelet. I did not want that getting caught up in the wind of the pickup, so pretty much just kind of roughly passed it around that screw that's on the outside. Those screws will eventually hold the keeper bar, but they're pretty much there right now, both of them screwed in place just so I don't lose them. So for a full view of the setup, there's my pickup wire, tiny lead going through the felt, through the little things for spacing out the wire, and then they'll go up onto the coil. We'll just kind of hold it just a little bit, and I have passed a couple of rounds through, and that's why the counter is at 4, because I have rotated it a couple times just to start that wire by hand. Off to a slow start. All I'm doing is running the machine and checking my far left and far right extremes. I want to make sure that all that coil wire lands inside the realms of the bobbin and not outside of it. Once I'm satisfied, I'm just going to slowly ramp up the speed and take off. Now I'll use my hand there just to slowly work that thing left and right. Now I can also feel the tension on my hand. How far up I raise my hand will add more tension, and if I bring my hand down it will decrease the tension, and it's really just a feel thing. I have no clue what I'm looking for. I've wound about, I don't know, I would say close to 40 or 50 pickups at this point, so I more or less just do what I've sort of learned feels the best. I have no clue what the actual parameters are here. I just know that the pickups work and they sound good, so that's what I keep doing. The winder at full speed runs a little bit over 900 RPM. I'm going to put close to 9,000 winds on this, so it's going to take me just barely over 10 minutes to wind this entire pickup. You'll see me stop a few times throughout. All I'm doing really is checking to see how evenly the wire is stacking up, and I may or may not want it even. In this case, I do want it pretty even. So I think you see me make an adjustment about halfway through, but I think the rest of this through this section is pretty self-explanatory. I'll just let you guys watch. Yeah, you see me slowing down, and I'm just, like I say, checking to see how it's lining up and if I like it or not. And that was about 1,000 winds, and that's kind of enough to see if you're headed off in the right direction or not. 8,777 winds. Can't be bad to work a little bit of luck into the pickup, right? Yeah, these would usually be about 10,000 for a bridge pickup and about 9,000 for a neck pickup. Because he's going to pair this with a Telecaster bridge pickup, I thought it would be a good idea to underwind this pickup a little bit so that the neck pickup isn't just way, way, way over loud versus the Tele bridge pickup. With the winding complete, it's safe to sever that connection back to the main spool of coil wire. All I need to do now is wind this through the eyelet. Again, I do this about 3 times. I guess it's really only down to that first one that you go through that actually makes a connection, but I do 3 loops through here. I'm sorry, I know this is probably not fun to watch, but it's so tedious, so I just felt like I needed to show it so that it better demonstrates the tediousness sometimes of this process. I'll pre-tin the eyelets with solder. I run my soldering iron about 450 degrees Fahrenheit. I feel that's necessary when soldering the coil wire from the pickup to burn the insulation off. And I'll basically just fill this coil wire. Also try to be very mindful if you're going to have any splatter go up on the coil. In this case, the P90 coil is pretty protected and I'm doing all the soldering up top, so I'm not really concerned about that aspect of it. But on a Stratocaster or Telecaster pickup, for example, I have damaged the wind from a little glob of molten solder going up and hitting all of the coils, and then you have a short that you can't really find, and you end up having to rewind the entire pickup to fix it. So for the moment of truth, it's time to see if our pickup actually works. I actually had this in Henry's, and then I thought, oh, Henry's is not going to show because I don't even have the magnet in there yet. So switch over to resistance. We'll get to see what the resistance of a pickup is. This one I think came out just under 7.1. Yeah, just under 7.1. Here I'm going to attach our lead wires. I chose to do the green and the bare for ground. And I was going to just get rid of the red wire and just clip it off. Then I thought I might could use that for something else, so I end up pulling it out of the entire wire. I'll use black for the start of the coil, which is what's pretty standard in Fender stuff. I don't know about Gibson or anybody else. And I use white for what will end up being the hot output of the pickup. Here you can see me tinning the leads off the lead wire just to help the solder joint happen much quicker and much easier. Going over that one more time, it's the black for the start of the coil wire that's buried at the very bottom of all the wraps. White will be the end of the coil wire, and that green and bare together will be an independent ground. And it was at this stage I realized I had nothing to solder the ground wire to, so I have to do a little bit of assembly. These screws that were just temporarily in will come out, the keeper bar will go on, and then they will go in their final location. Their main job really is to hold the base plate and the keeper bar together, and they also sort of hold the magnets in place. So the magnets are actually polarized sort of long ways there. Like it's not a normal bar magnet where you have a north end and a south end. You have like a north side and a south side. That's the way that I sort of view that. So when you're assembling a P90, opposites have to go together, which is one of the reasons that the older pickups sort of weaken over time, is those magnets are essentially fighting each other the entire time. What they do is act on the pole piece. So you're charging the bottom of that pole piece in a specific direction, and the top of the pole piece will be what picks up the signal from the guitar. So if you want the pickup to be, say, north up, Then you need to put the south end of both magnets facing the bottom of the pole piece, and then the tops of the pole piece will then be north up. You need to take time here too and make sure those magnets are really centered to make sure that they are going to interact with all 6 pole pieces once they're in place. They should be just long enough to from most suppliers. I really do like my little StewMac screwdriver kit, but man, you cannot get those flatheads out. It's really a pain. Had to get a set of pliers out to get those flatheads out properly. Here you're just watching me install all these pole pieces. If you've lined everything up right, it'll go through the spacer, through the bobbins, and into that keeper bar at the bottom and the base plate. I'm not ashamed of my work at all, so I'm going to sign it and date it. Then I dry it off with like a hot air soldering station. Then I'll get this pickup potted, throw it in some wax, and let it keep going until the bubbles stop coming out. You have to go low and slow with this. It took most of the time building this pickup for all this wax to get liquid again. This mixture is probably about 60% beeswax at this point and maybe 40% paraffin. I'm not exactly sure on that ratio. I know it has a little bit of both in it. I occasionally add back to it. The paraffin is a little too soft and the beeswax is a little too hard, so I just kind of get a feel for how that wax is feeling and make an add accordingly. The only thing that needs done here is just hold that pickup in the wax for a while. It does need to be for a little while because the temperature of the materials themselves need to also reach about 140 or 150. You want that wax to penetrate really good, so all that needs to be the right temperature. But you don't want the magnets themselves or the pole pieces to get too hot, so I don't allow it to touch the bottom. I just hold it in there and I just wait for the air bubbles to stop. Yeah, you can see a few air bubbles right there where I'm pointing. I'm just going to wait for all those to stop, and then that tells me the air is all out of the inside of the pickup. And then just pull it out, let it cool off for a while, put the cover on, and it's ready to give this thing to Mike. Then we'll give this thing a final test to make sure that nothing in the assembly process broke anything. I've had that happen before also. So there's our resistance on the coil. Okay, so that rise in resistance from 7.1 to 7.8, yeah, that's just the temperature. Yeah, when you heat that up, the resistance goes up. That's why I don't really like resistance as a reliable indicator of output. And there I'm just making sure that the coil is not shorted to the ground connection at all, because it does need to be an independent ground. So here where I'm not getting a reading, that's a good thing. I want that to not be connected to that ground at all. Now we'll go over to Henry's. Henry's actually is a good indicator of output of a pickup. Vintage Strats can be around 2 Henrys, which is pretty low. This one is about 5.9 Henrys, so this is much hotter than any Strat pickup would be, or any Tele pickup would be. And I've seen humbuckers as weak as 4 to 4.5 Henrys. And I've seen them as strong as 13 to 14 Henrys. So it looks like where we landed for output for this thing is about like a weak humbucker. Should pair pretty well with a Telecaster bridge pickup. I appreciate you guys for making it this far in the video. I hope it helped you out in your guitar building journey. And I just couldn't be happier with that result. I think that came out to a very nice looking pickup. I think it will serve Mike well. And I can't wait to hear it in the guitar he's going to build. Now I'll just get this thing packaged up for him in a very professional blue towel with some masking tape around it. And it'll be ready for when he's ready to build the guitar. Now, I forgot I recorded this footage, but I can show you the polarity of a P90, the way that works. So, like I say, your pole pieces are actually what do the picking up from the string, and you've faced those two opposite faces of the magnet at the bottom. So in this case, you have two north faces of the magnet facing all 6 pole pieces, and the top of the pole piece that reads the string is south up. That ends up making a really, really wide magnetic field, and I think that's why these pickups sound the way that they do, as they pick up such a length of string. Even though they're a single coil pickup, they have quite a bit of output. If you haven't tried P90s yet, I guarantee you're going to like them, because they're enough like a single coil that you'll like them, and they're enough like a humbucker that you'll like them. So no matter which end of that spectrum you land on, you will enjoy a P90. I guarantee it. The only problem is a lot of them are noisy, and that's what a lot of people can't deal with. Again, thanks to everyone that hung out this long in a video, and y'all have a good day.